Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about Trump and the most recent developments concerning the documents. But before we get into that, I want to recap some things that we have talked about on the channel since this whole thing started and just kind of go over them because some of it is going to come into play. When we're talking about the importance and the severity of the situation, you take documents that you're not supposed to have, okay? And you either are asked for them back and say no, or you just know you have them and you don't, give them back. That's willful retention. Willful retention is bad. If that information is something that betrays means and methods, how the U.S. gathers secrets or its capabilities that are unknown to the opposition, that's worse. If you were to take information and then transmit it, and that doesn't have to be like some spy thing, it could just be telling somebody, that's worse than retention. It becomes even worse if it is the means and methods type stuff. And then it becomes worse if the person you transmitted it to is a foreign national. And then it becomes even worse if it's means and methods type stuff. Like, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, how close U.S. subs can get to opposition subs without being detected. That would fall into that category of the capabilities that are unknown to the opposition. That would be providing that information to a foreign national, even from an allied country, when you're not supposed to, especially about a topic like that. I mean, realistically, the only thing that's kind of worse would be directly handing it to a hostile power. So, why am I saying all of this? Because recent reporting suggests that Trump did that. The most recent reporting suggests that after Trump left the White House, he was at his club and he met with an Australian businessman. During this conversation, the topic turned to subs. And that makes sense. Australia's, during this period, the idea of Australia getting subs from the U.S. and all of that, it's a topic. So, sure, they talk about that. During this conversation, according to the reporting, the former president of the United States leans in and tells him information about nuclear capabilities of those subs and how close they can get to opposition subs without being detected. Reading the reporting, it certainly sounds like the former president of the United States was playing the game of who's in the know with information that could quite literally cost people their lives. I don't know what kind of ego it requires to be the former president of the United States and still play the game of who's in the know. So, all of this is bad. This is definitely worse than the initial allegations. But it actually gets worse from here because according to the reporting, the Australian businessman then shared the information with about 45 other people, to include journalists, to include Australian officials. It has to be assumed at this point that that information is now in opposition hands. There's not a way to safely assume that secret is still secret. Incidentally, if the former president had wanted to actually be in the know, probably would have read his intelligence briefings. And had he read those, he probably would have understood that providing that kind of information to a foreign national, particularly one from a Five Eyes nation, was going to get noticed, especially if that businessman then went on to tell Australian officials about it, some very high-ranking ones. I don't know, it seems like something they might make a note of. And then that information would, of course, get back to the United States. There might be a whole lot of documentation on this, way more than is actually in the reporting and is talked about. So there's that. Now, given this, I would like to amend a position that I had. I was under the impression that if Trump was found guilty, that the U.S. government, because he's a former president, would make certain accommodations concerning his sentence. I no longer believe that. If these allegations are true, and this is proven in court, I do not believe that. I don't believe that to be the case anymore. The things that we don't know are, of course, whether or not the information actually got out beyond these 45 people, and whether it's in hostile hands. But it has to be treated that way now. The other thing that we don't know is whether or not Trump provided the real information, because he often just, makes stuff up. We don't know that either. But I'm going to suggest that U.S. nuclear sub capabilities and the United States' nuclear deterrent, probably not something that should be discussed in a club for clout. This is bad. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.